Well, my name is Christopher, and we are co-founders of Monavast Academy. Monavast Academy is essentially a personal development organization, right, whose mission is to inspire, educate, and empower individuals, couples, and parents to win purposely. And what we mean by winning purposely, it is to intentionally achieve that which you set out to achieve. So I'd ask you a question. What do you think winning is in your opinion?
Achieving something that you want to achieve.
Achieving what you set to achieve. Okay. And you don't have to answer this next question if you don't want to, but when you look at your life, would you define your life as one where you're a winner? Or do you aspire to have better things, do better, be better?
Not sure about that.
Yes? Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to walk through I'm going to walk through my life, and once I'm done, we're just going to give an overview of her life. Because there are times in our life when there are certain decisions that we may make, actions that we may take, that can lead us to go one way or the other, right? And I'll kind of start with my life, right? I'm the middle child of 5 kids. My mother was a single parent. My life was probably one of great dysfunction, right? There was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of emotional abuse, right? So at the age of 13, I left home. I lived on the streets. And you can probably imagine the type of things that a 13-year-old gets into when he's in the streets, right? One thing led to another. I remember this one particular instance. I was 13. I was still going to school. And I used to have to walk probably about 10 miles to go to school. When I first left home, I used to sleep in a corner of this abandoned school. Right? I had my mattress, well, not my mattress, I had a blanket. I had my backpack. I used to lay my backpack on the floor. Right? I used to lay down. I used to wrap myself in the covers. I had a watch. I would get up. I would go to school. I would go into the gym. I would shower. And then I would eat lunch there. I would go to school. Once I'm done, I would repeat that for quite some time. Right? Eventually, my brother, my eldest brother, said, "You know, Christopher, you're living on the streets. Why don't you come with us?" You know, I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. So he asked, "Why don't you come live with us? You know, my father has a house." I said, "Okay, fine." But that didn't really help things, because while the life that I had left was full of dysfunctionality, the life that I went to was lacking structure. Right? So it's my brother. He's no more than 4 years older than me. And so eventually one thing led to another, and I got into a lot of problems where eventually at the age of 18 I found myself in prison. Okay? Eventually I spent about 11 years in prison. But the first 3 to 4 years was in solitary confinement. So let's think about this for a moment, right? I lived on the streets. I was a high school dropout, didn't graduate high school. So I had that street mentality, right? And by the time I got to prison, I was getting into fights with the officers. One such fight eventually landed me in solitary confinement, and this is probably was the lowest point of my life, right? Solitary confinement, where I was at, was basically all brick. There were little small windows, right? That's how daylight came in. We were in our cells for 23 hours a day. You got 1 hour a day to get out, to shower, have solitary recreation, and you're back in your cell. Right? Eventually, you know, I was always an avid reader. I used to only read stuff like westerns, and my wife made fun of me when she learned that I used to read westerns, gangster books, and etc. I just read whatever came along on the book cart. One day, after having read everything on there that I could possibly read, I picked up this one book, and it was by an author called J. Krishnamurti. Now I'm 45 years old, right? I still remember that, even though it was like 27 years ago, right? Because it was a book that had a profound impact on my life. It was called Commentaries of Living. And it was a chapter probably of about 100 different questions, 100 different chapters. Each chapter began with a question, because its purpose was to get you to think about your life. And that's when I decided to start to make some different decisions. Right? Eventually, I got out of solitary confinement. I got a GED. I got an associate degree. I started to become a tutor for adult basic education students and a GED instructor. I worked in the library, to where eventually I got the associate degree allowed for me to get out a year early. Now, I had lost 2 years by going to solitary confinement. So I was only supposed to do 10, I did 11, but by getting the associate degree, it allowed for me to get 1 more year back. So eventually I only did 11 instead of 12, right? So eventually I got out, and then once I got out, my life was still very difficult at that point. Even though I had started to make some different decisions, started to take some different action, that didn't mean that my life was now easy, because it wasn't. I was on parole, and I didn't have a car, but I was determined to never go back to prison again. So what I used to do is I worked for a place called Labor Ready. It's like a day labor place. The place that I was living at, the buses didn't run early enough for me to get to Labor Ready on time. So I would have to walk nearly 90 minutes one way, about 4:30 in the morning, just to get to the place by 6 o'clock so I could be one of the first ones to get on the work assignment. Right? At the end of the day, I would walk back home, right? And so that repeated itself until eventually I relocated. You know, I went to college again. I got a bachelor's degree. I got a master's degree. Started my own businesses. I got married. I have a little boy. Right? And my life has taken an entirely different direction. But still, I have my challenges. Right? I have an MBA, right? And I'm still presented with challenges in terms of getting a job. I'm working on a part in right now that's going to give me the opportunity to volunteer at places that I cannot now volunteer because I have a felony background. Even though I make right decisions, even though I'm doing the right actions, the things that I did in my past will affect me and impact me today. Does that make sense? Okay. So, think about that for a moment. I'm going to let Rita speak a little bit about her life.
Okay, so as much as my life hasn't been as dramatic as Christopher's, I was raised by a very strict family, which led me to get married when I was 18, had my daughter very young. And because I had my daughter, I decided not to go to college because I figured, how could I spend time with my daughter and go to school and work? As much as I tried really hard at working hard and proving myself at work, there were always other people that had an education that may not have the knowledge I had, but they had the education on their resume, which made a lot more money than me. So today I do make, you know, decent money and I do have a good job, but the choice, if I were to backtrack, the choices I made back then would not be the choices I would make today. So as much as my life hasn't been impacted moving forward as much as Christopher's, but we're almost at the same place. So I can't move forward as much as I would want to because I don't have the college education. He, on the other hand, has the college education, but his past. So the decisions you make, even though they're not as severe as, you know, both of us had, they still impact you, you know. So moving forward, like my daughter, I told her, I never forced her to go to college, but I told her, you know, the life we have, even though it's been a good life, it could have been better had I gone to college. So she's going to...
Well, so almost me, I mean, the reason we've had contrasting lives, obviously, right? But there are really 4 points that I think are central to our lives and really to most people's lives, right? Because remember that our mission at Montebass Academy is to help people purposely win. And purposely winning means that you are intentionally achieving that which you set out to achieve, right? And there are really 4 things that we really wanted to kind of discuss today, right? The first one is decisions, so excuse me if I don't get my spelling right. The second is actions. The third is challenges. And the last one is resources, okay? So, and you may be asking why those 4 things. The reason why those 4 things is because that no matter, and so, okay, so the person that you mentioned, right, you would classify him as a winner, right? The guy that you, the best athlete, what you think, right? Okay. decisions, right? Don't know why you're here today, and really it's not of significance to us. But some of the things that we would like for you to start to think about today is, and you can answer these questions loud if you want. Do you like your current situation that you're in? Okay. Do you want, or do you sit down at the end of the day, or at any time throughout the day, and wish for better, or hope for better? Okay. So you want for your future to be much different than your past. How do you think that will happen? It starts by making different decisions, right? For example, I could have decided, instead of leaving home, I could have decided maybe to call DCFS, right? I could have decided maybe to call my grandfather, my grandparents, right? But I made the decision to leave home. And as a consequence, that decision allowed for me to make other decisions that were probably not the best decision for me to make. So sometimes in life, if we want for our futures to be much different than our past, it starts with making better decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to speak about actions. So what do you do each day that takes you closer to your goals? Like, have you set goals? Like, no. So what about if maybe that's a goal you set, is setting goals? Maybe even small things, just, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I want to go to college, or I want to, have a beautiful home, or just small, just so that it gets you into a habit of setting goals. Like, today I'm going to, finish my homework by 3 instead of just waiting whenever I feel like, just small things so that it starts that thought process and it becomes a habit.
Well, but you said you had a goal, right? You want to go to Italy, right? You can use that as an example, right? So how do you think you're going to get to Italy? Name me 3 things that you think that you would have to do today or over the course of whenever for you to eventually get to Italy.
Make positive actions.
Such as?
I'm not sure.
Well, first it's going to cost you some money to get there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you going to ask for somebody to pay that for you, or do you want to fund it yourself?
I'm funding myself.
Okay, so clearly you need a job, right? Okay, now, so that's one thing that you need to do in order to get there, right? But in order to get a job, right, you're probably going to have an education, right? In order to get an education, you're probably going to have to do well in this program so that you can get out, get you an education, get a job so you can pay for yourself to go to Italy, right? So those are decisions that you make that can let you get to where you want to be in life, right? Sorry, I didn't mean that.
And then you send us a postcard.
Send us a postcard. Hey, I'm in Italy. I told you I would get there.
Do you have, do you use anybody or anything to leverage your, a resource, probably her, as far as helping you get to, to do what you need to do, or your goal?
Not really. I avoid them sometimes.
So
You said you avoid them?
Yeah.
Okay.
avoid them being hurt, or avoid your resources that you have? Yeah. So maybe that could also be a goal. Trying to see how you could, why, or do you want to tell me why you avoid them, or you just,
I don't have a reason.
you just
Yeah.
don't feel it's important?
Yeah.
So maybe that's a goal too, to take one resource that you have available here and use it, and then maybe you'll see that that will open the door to you feeling better about using other resources. And really, that's probably your best friend. It's like going to school. Your resources are called your counselor, your teachers. They're the ones that are going to help you. Like my daughter, she had a learning disability. She was dyslexic, and she was made fun of. And she promised herself, when she graduated high school, she showed me a letter that she had written when she was in 5th grade. She promised herself that she would go to college, no matter who made fun of her. She used her resource person at high school to write a really good letter for her because of she tried so hard in high school. She got to college, she went to Cal State. So sometimes those resources are like your best friends, because you can't do it alone. Nobody could do it. Even as an adult, you always need somebody like a mentor or somebody to help you. So maybe finding a resource here that would help you too.
So, and then that takes us to challenges. So I'm going to use my life as an example here. So even though at, I would say 22, 23 years old, I started to make better decisions. And I started to take purposeful actions that would help me achieve my goal. I had decided for myself one day while I was in solitary confinement that I would never again find myself in this situation, right? But it would take me the next 7 years to get out of that, because eventually I got out of prison, right? So I started to do some purposeful action. But just because I started to make better decisions and started to do purposeful action doesn't mean that my life is no longer full of challenges. Even today, my life is still full of challenges, right? So you're going to have to realize that no matter what you choose to do in life, right, making better decisions, doing the right actions, you will still be confronted with obstacles. You will still be confronted with setbacks. You will still be confronted with challenges that's going to probably push you to the point to where you say, you know what, it's not worth it. But if your goal is worthy enough for you to aspire to have, then you will find a way of overcoming those challenges, right? I'll give you a prime example. The company that I was at prior to, I'd been there for 5-6 years. And, you know, it had allowed for us to have a certain type of a living, but it was always something that was less than what I was capable of doing. The job that I was in didn't require for me to have a bachelor's, didn't require for me to have an MBA, right? So I went and applied to a number of other different positions that I was best suited for. But you know what? Because of my past, right, I couldn't get those jobs. But I could have easily said, you know what, F it. You know, I'm just going to go back to doing the same things that I was doing before. But who would I be hurting if I decided to do that? I'm not hurting the people that decided, you know what, I'm not going to give you this job because you have this felony background. I would be hurting myself. Right? By me doing that, I'm hurting myself, and I'm proving to them that, you know what, you're right, that I can change. But by me overcoming those challenges, and they come up every day, it proves to myself and it proves to others that, you know what, just because I used to be that person, despite my past, right, I can have a better future. So understanding that whatever challenges that you're going through right now, they will always be there unless you find a way to overcome them. Make sense?
Well, I kind of
And she
incorporated too.
So, right, so I mean, essentially, you know, we were hoping for a much bigger group. But essentially, I mean, we didn't really come here today to preach to anybody. We didn't come here to really tell anybody what you should do. Our purpose today was to give you two examples, right, of two different lives that even though Rita's life was not as drastic as my life, some of the consequences were not as severe, we still were confronted with some of the same, you know, 4 points: making better decisions, you know, doing personal actions, overcoming challenges, and taking advantage of the resources that are available for you. Because I don't know why you're here, but clearly the actions that led you to be here are not severe enough to where it's going to impact your life in a negative way for the rest of your life. So this is probably an opportunity. I had an opportunity to have some people call it a come to Jesus moment, right? Where you are presented with a choice in life. Are you going to go left or are you going to go right? If you decide to go right, I'm going to say right, meaning that it's the right course of action. If you decide to go right, it can open up a world of opportunities for you. You can also decide to go left and then decide to be still involved in the same situation that you're now, but where would that lead you to? Right? So take advantage of the resources that you have today. And if there are some things that you want, let no one or anything stop you from trying to achieve that. And that's really what our message is.